Welcome to Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready, we're about to live in your head rent-free. Hello, Otterites. This is episode 163.
I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis.
Welcome, one and all. It is episode 163, Code of Honor, gentlemen. It is my favorite episode to captain. It's my favorite episode, period. Because I love the freewheeling... Well, what am I saying? It's always freewheeling, go wherever we want kind of an episode.
Yes, but this you take wisdom, hopefully, and run with it. What's not to love?
And they're probably the least produced, least prepared, least studied episodes we do.
Well, I don't know that I can make
that. Not that we study the other ones a ton.
Well, it's least based in fact.
I don't want to say that, because, I mean... That makes it sound like we're making it all up, which we kind of are.
Which we kind of are.
But yeah.
But it's the least based in research.
Well, yeah, that's true.
This
you
is
can find out what we think.
Well, it's the most cerebral of all of our episodes.
Oh, yes. Which is very cool.
Ironically, it's the most fun of all of our episodes. I just love it the best.
Essentially, they're thought exercises.
Yes.
Every single time.
I mean, that's what this whole podcast is. This is just the most focused version of that.
Love it.
So, Code of Honor, as Francis said at the end of the last episode, if you were listening last week, which of course you were, Otterites, because you're faithful listeners, said that this is going to be...
Keep the faith, brother.
That's right, keep the faith, brother.
Keep the faith, Otterites.
This is... we're doing a theme.
I think we just came up with a catchphrase.
We did. We kind of stole it, but that's okay.
Keep the faith, Otterites.
That's right. So we're doing quotes from Thomas Hobbes, great philosopher. And a lot of his quotes are actually part of the normal lexicon of everyday life.
Yes.
Life is nasty, brutish, and short is probably one of the most famous.
Yes, a lot of what he has said and wrote has crept into our consciousness, much like Shakespeare.
Yes.
Right. And we don't always know that.
Yeah.
That's why he's the first of our mini tour, so to speak, of the great philosophers that we're starting this month.
Yes.
And running through the first of next year, we've got a whole slew of them lined up.
Yes. So, Thomas Hobbes, and then we're actually going to examine his life in the next episode.
Correct.
We're going to whet your appetite with quotes from him this week. So, as usual, one of the gentlemen will go before me, and then I will wrap things up, attempting to tie it all together based on what they've pulled together. Before we start, though, we are in Studio F here in the Baxter Building, just as we were last week, and enjoying once again Francis's fine accommodations and his fine bourbon.
Yes,
Indeed.
the Johnny's Game Room,
Yes,
just down the hall.
Down the hall from Reed's Lab.
Reed's Lab.
Next to Nihilus' toilet.
That's exactly right.
Yes, next to the door of the negative zone. We got to watch out for that.
So, all right. So, Martin, are you going first, or Francis, are you going first?
I'm suggesting Martin go first.
Okay.
All right, Martin's going first. All right.
He seems set. He seems ready. I'm still a little bit nebulous, but depending on where he goes is...
So again, Hobbes is a wealth of stuff, and I haven't dug into him a ton until we start talking about these episodes, but I find this quote interesting because it's so antithetical to the American experience.
Okay.
Oh, I like that.
Okay. All right.
Again, Hobbes is a writer on... He's a philosopher, but it's the philosophy of governance.
That's correct.
It's kind of his specialty. It's
Political philosophy.
Political thought.
It's
Political
not
philosophy.
necessarily the nature of man, although that creeps in all over the place.
Right, because where are you going to go with the nature of man except into how to govern that nature?
Exactly.
And that's exactly what he's doing. So he's kind of the anti-Voltaire almost.
Quite before Voltaire.
Yes.
We'll talk about that next month, but yeah, he predates.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons we're doing it first, because he's before most of the rest of them we're going to talk about.
Right.
What is the time frame? I forgot to look that up.
He's the era of the English Civil War, the
Correct.
Commonwealth. So
Okay,
we're
that's
talking
right.
1630s. 1640s.
Yes.
Charles I loses his head 1649. That's kind of the benchmark of...
I always find that phrase funny, because it's not like he misplaced it.
That's right. That's exactly
It
right.
was taken.
It was taken.
So, and the Stuart Restoration is what, 1660?
No,
1660, almost 70. I want to say 1670.
Well, I think it's 60s.
It's a little bit before that.
Yeah, 68 or something like that. 60. Right. So that's his era, the era of Cromwell and the Commonwealth And
Now he's writing after that, mind you, but
he's writing in response to the disorder.
Correct. He's writing during the time of Charles II, but he's remembering all that crap that went on before, and that's the impetus that drives a lot of him. So you kind of got that he's going through this unbelievable anarchy, for lack of a better term, and he's trying to think, what the hell happened? And that's where a lot of this stuff comes from, because he's looking about how did we get here?
It's an oddly unique period of English history. It literally is the only English dictatorship.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That spawned the restoration of the Stuart line. Because things are just so crappy under Cromwell. Everybody hated it.
Right. Even it had its. Cromwell had his. He was a military genius in many respects, and he brought prestige to the Commonwealth in certain ways, but he couldn't survive beyond him.
Right. Well, it was a very overbearing,
very much so.
Puritan
it was harsh.
Approach to things.
Was very harsh.
Yes.
And people discovered, having those nightclubs and brothels and stuff, we kind of liked those.
Going to the theater was fun.
Yes. And Charles II, he was smart because he was very much into theater.
And the prostitutes.
Yes, I was going to say, and the actresses.
Which that's correct.
And prostitutes and actresses were somewhat synonymous at the time.
That's correct, yes. So he says, I'm in for that. Bring me back. And so they did. So that's the reason Hobbes could write this stuff, is because it's really permissive.
Right, you can't be critical of, even in veiled criticism, during the time of a dictatorship. You lose your head.
That's exactly
literally.
Right. Yeah. So he was just old enough to be a child during most of that. And
okay,
afterwards.
So that's the bio.
There's the bio.
The backdrop to these quotes.
So we'll have to cut that out and insert it in next week's episode.
Yeah, we can do it.
So the quote is, Thomas Hobbes from Leviathan, his famous treatise on government. Mixed government is not government, but division of the Commonwealth into 3 factions. Mixed government being, of course, a government where power is distributed across different institutions.
Right. In whatever percentage that happens to be. That's right.
In our case, separate but equal branches, executive, legislative, and judicial.
So, in theory, 33, 33, 33.
Well, would it be that, or would it be federal versus states?
It could also be that, too.
Yes. Again, that's another, power invested in separate institutions.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And having delineated and limited powers.
Right.
I would think that would be alien to Hobbes' concept of state government and federal governments.
Exactly.
Because it's one government.
Well, yeah, that is a unique thing with us because we started out as 13 countries.
Right, and that's
how they saw each other. So that's why we are the United States, because that's what nations are, states. So it could also even be, political parties.
Yeah.
You could even go that far.
And that's correct, yeah.
Because I think it sounds like he's talking about whatever pits one group against another.
Yeah, the division of the Commonwealth
unity
into 3 factions. And again, when you talk 3 factions, the most obvious equality of that statement is judicial branch, executive branch, legislative branch.
Yes,
right. That's the easiest example.
So he's like, nah, we don't want it. We don't want none of that. We want the strongest possible central authority is the only way to govern.
Which is interesting.
You're just pitting these factions against each other.
Which is interesting because if he's writing in response to Cromwell, well, there you go. That's your strongest possible central authority.
Irony of irony. That's correct. That's one of his.
Cromwell's position is bolstered by Parliament.
It is
the start of everything in this Civil War is Parliament against the King.
True,
correct. So
legislative against
that's division versus division.
Yeah. So he's reacting to Parliament versus the executive in the form of the monarch, saying these are just 2 factions fighting each other that are going to lead to disorder.
And ultimately, awfulness.
Yes.
So is he saying that basically the enlightened dictatorship is the only way to go?
The enlightened monarchy.
That's exactly the enlightened monarchy.
Yeah, he's a monarchist all the way through.
Yeah.
So that quote.
In fairness, there's no other real option at this point when he's writing. I mean, it's never really been thought of other than ancient Rome.
Well, but that's why I say dictatorship, because because the implication is absolute rule, divine, whether you want to say divine right or not, but it's absolute rule. You can call it a monarch, you can call it a king or an emperor, but essentially all that means is your son, or at this time only your son, takes over after you.
Right.
That's the only difference between a monarch and a true dictator, like a Tito or somebody else.
Yeah, well,
Pol Pot.
As a general rule, dictators don't have successors at all. You start over, and something else happens, no matter what they try.
Right. I mean, so you could call a monarchy is just a slightly more civilized dictatorship.
Because it has a formal succession process. And it can sometimes not necessarily hereditary. It evolves to that. But
right, well, the Holy Roman Empire did not have
you had
a strictly hereditary, although it really was, but there was a mechanism.
Yes, the who had passed who usually had to be confirmed in the spot by
the Saxon kingdoms
electors.
were that way before the conquest. They had to be, the Witan had to convey, and they had to ratify who. It may be the hereditary choice. It often was. It usually was. But sometimes
Civil War follows if it's not.
Well,
and sometimes that's okay.
It's right, because
them.
If that successor is weak or somehow not desirable in certain ways, it's usually not factionalism at this time.
There
which is what he's talking about.
Yes,
is factionalism. Which that also, bearing in mind, in the English, it's only about 150 years after the Wars of the Roses, which was nothing but factionalism. So you've got that as the background here, which was brought to heel under the Tudors, which, of course, during the wars in England, the religious uprisings, that didn't always see. He's thinking back to the glory days. Henry VIII held it together. Elizabeth I held it together. And Charles I decided that because of this stupid thing called Parliament, that it's all going to fall apart. And Cromwell brought it together, but he was still hampered by Parliament. He's suggesting one strong executive, but it has to be enlightened. He's very clear about that. Otherwise, you do have tyranny. A dictatorship and tyranny are not the same thing.
Well, I don't agree with that.
All right, that's why I'm throwing it out there.
Because
think on that.
Yeah. See, the problem that I have with this quote is this. I have multiple problems with this, and it goes back to what we were talking about in show prep: is the logical conclusion.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you have one guy or girl, man or woman, who sets all policy and says, this is right, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So for him to be able to say there's no factionalism, he's got to be in charge of everything. He's got to be able to make all the decisions, because the moment he no longer makes all the decisions, you have factions.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's impossible.
Yeah.
The ideal that he's proposing is absolutely 100% categorical, not possible.
Irony of ironies here. One of the reasons that he's doing this here. This is during the time of Louis XIV, who is doing this, who is trying, successful whether or not.
But he's not.
He's trying to bring control under everything. All patronage comes from him. He's bringing all the people. So Hobbes is looking to that as an example, saying, if we'd only done it the way the French did it,
but that's just
this is possible.
But it's not, because I think what this misses is that you may have one guy saying, the patronage comes from me, but all that does is saying, I define who the factions are.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, there's still a factionalism.
There's still favorites. Absolutely.
The factions just serve the one guy.
Yeah, right. So it's impossible not to have what he's railing against. It may not start out that way.
Somebody's always angling.
Somebody's always influencing.
Well, I would put it this way. Somebody's always on the outs.
Well, that's true too. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because
wants back in.
Because whoever's close, that means somebody's not.
Exactly.
And that's one of the reasons that, like in Louis' case, they would all try to seek to become close with the mistresses, because the mistresses could give them anything.
Exactly.
So it's the same dance that you're talking about here. That factionalism that he's railing against, it's done even supposedly in an autocratic society.
Yes. If you want to influence the king, you become best friends with Madame de Pompadour.
Well, that is literally, of course, that's later, but that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So because she was a long-term mistress.
Yes. So, on the one hand, I understand where he's coming from, but like a lot of philosophy, and this is the thing that is what saddens me so when it comes to philosophy, because I love this stuff. This is just this is my thing. They're all full of shit.
Wow, so well put. Yeah, they had too much time on their hands.
Well, yeah, and actually, that's a quote that you could say comes from Hobbes.
Yeah, that's right. That's
so,
comes off.
It's a paraphrase of something that he said. This ideal that they all seem to want to shoot for, almost none of them are ever practical. And that's kind of the problem, is that, yeah, I love the philosophy, the exercise of the mind, but if all I can do is come up with something that is total BS that nobody can ever implement, it's a total frickin' waste of my time.
So yeah, I love...
Is it though? Isn't the exercise itself worth something?
Yes.
Okay, it's got to be something.
The exercise is worth going through.
Because if nothing else, you recognize what is a waste of time.
Yeah, when you get to the end, you
go... But what's
go,
impossible.
Yeah, when you get to the end, you realize, this is a dead-end street.
But that's the problem. They never recognize the dead-end streets.
It's always up to others.
They put this forth, and Hobbes is no different than the rest of followers, as a moral good.
Yes.
They say this is the way it should be.
And that's the thing, it's not just a moral good. They always put it forward as the moral good.
This is the only way.
So, as we talked about,
there's no diversity here.
Reviling Wilson in the last episode, but how is this any different from Hobbes? They're both saying, this is the only way forward. I'm going to save everybody. If you follow my advice.
And yet sometimes, depending on the leader, people do that in enough numbers to...
Well, I'm not saying that not doing it is the problem. What I'm saying is that their approach, both of their approaches is the same thing.
Yeah. It just depends on the
even Voltaire.
Charismatic nature of the leader.
Well, as to whether or not they can implement it.
Yeah.
But my point is that it has nothing to do with the leader. They're both saying essentially the same thing. They both are espousing the same philosophy.
My way or the highway.
Which is only I.
Only I.
So the cult of personality is a Hobbesian comment.
Absolutely.
Concept.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because that's the only way it works in his mind.
Such as is.
Yeah, such as is.
And that's the reason I brought this quote out.
That is a quality of the enlightened despot, is also that cult of personality, and I don't believe Hobbes said that, but ultimately that's
that's a new term.
A new term, but it's essentially
the Russian Revolution term.
You have to have
the Russians came up with that term.
That whatever you want to call it.
Well, every revolution, there's one man.
That's with a vision. No, sorry.
But that's exactly what he's saying.
That's exactly right.
But that one man, that's that cult of personality. Every movement, Washington was the center figure in that cult of personality in the American Revolution.
Is it personality or is it power?
Well, in many ways, it can be the same way. Same thing.
And I kind of going backwards a little bit, chicken or egg, but power is ultimately what we're talking about here. Now it's kind of going Nietzsche on it, but that's what you're talking about is whoever has the power. Right. How they got that power and kept that power should be a function of personality.
Achievement. A function of achievement.
To keep it, though.
I don't even know that he's saying that.
And I'm kind of throwing
that might be more than where...
It's probably not really true, though, because you got, especially in English kings are real easy to see this, because you have weak ones every so often. Edward II, that he's still king for a significant... They have to forcibly overthrow him. Because he's so bad, that's an anathema to the English people. You don't go and overthrow your kings, even though they do occasionally.
I have not read anything in Leviathan in decades. I'm sure I did in political philosophy class I had at Bellarmine.
It's the foundation for so much for us, yes.
But
some of it in a negative sense.
How does he handle transition from one enlightened despot to the next?
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to bring that quote out. I'm not granting it positive significance.
Right.
I wanted you to attack it.
Right.
Because I would have attacked it. Because
ultimately the transition part, as long as it happens peacefully, he doesn't care.
But
he's railing against the separation of powers, which is a bedrock of our political sense.
Correct. He says it's not possible.
Well, that's because
But then again, is he not? There's some truth to that, because look at how the factionalism, I'm speaking political party versus political party, we are so polarized today. Is that not very Hobbesian, and it's in exactly what he's talking about? Nothing happens because you just worry about keeping your power. you're constantly running for re-election, so you're not really doing anything.
Well, some would say that's a good function of government.
I was going to say, I was going to kind of that's
good. As somebody once said, the most dangerous time in America is when Congress is in session.
That's right. Yeah. People are safe when they're home.
Exactly.
Governs best who governs least.
Yes.
That's a very Jeffersonian ideal.
Yeah. So, it is very antithetical to the American mindset, and I understand his point in that why can't, in a very Rodney King way, why can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
But it denies the reality of the individual.
Yeah.
That's ultimately it, because everything is subservient to the state.
Yes.
In that one person.
And again, that's very antithetical to us. Because, it's built into our national DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
there is no freedom in that.
Yeah, it's very Hobbesian. He specifies, once you got this authority figure, you defer, period.
It's Big Brother.
Your job as a citizen is, yes, Your Highness.
Obey your king.
Yes, Your Highness.
It's Big Brother.
Yeah.
It's not even built on nationalism at this point. This is
This is pre-nationalism.
This is pre-nationalism. So this is some of it's divine right. It's all based in duty in many respects. Yeah. But it's also seen as a moral good.
Well, the lack of chaos is a moral good.
And that's exactly Hobbes what he's saying.
Right.
The only real goal here is peace. Peace
at any means.
Internal peace.
By any cost. At any cost.
Internal means. That's correct.
And
internal peace.
Right. And
stable government.
Peace is easy to achieve. Give in.
That's right.
Well, yeah,
because that is the ultimate stable government.
That's an Orwell.
The enlightened despot. That's what he means.
Yeah,
the problem is who defines enlightened.
Yeah. Well, Hobbes goes into detail on that because
he defines it. What if my definition is different?
Yeah. Because ultimately, the good of the people is what we're talking about here.
Are
your people fed? Are your people? Is there peace? Is there the free exchange of trade? Hobbes goes into detail on a lot of this
that's
stuff
where the difference comes in.
Yeah.
What's the definition of the good of the people?
Exactly. Because
to me, the only good is the people's liberty. Period. Everything else,
he could care less about that.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that's right. He's saying,
in his case, it's the free exchange of trade. That's really what he goes.
Well, see, and I think that's antithetical to what he wants, because free exchange of trade, automatically is going to lead to a free exchange of ideas. It's going to lead to factions, because free trade is going to lead to economic competition. Economic competition is going to start building factions. Economic competition in the form of factions is how you get big business and big government in bed together.
Right.
Ultimately.
Of course, in his case, the concept of big business is
I get
impossible.
That. But then it would have been dukes and counts instead of big corporations.
Right.
That's where the economic factionalism would have come from there. Which, again, goes back to I decide who the winners are and who the losers
are. That's right.
are.
That's somewhat familial, somewhat geographical, somewhat patronage, all of that in his mind.
Right. There is no merit in his system.
None whatsoever. No.
And again,
that's irrelevant.
That's where I have a problem, because
that's a very English thing.
It's a fixed... It's not just a fixed point in time. It's a fixed system that cannot, by definition, cannot and should not change.
That's right, because people do not
change. So once you're on the highway to hell, that's your only place you're going, because we do not change.
You're born in poverty, you die in poverty.
Yes.
There is no upward mobility whatsoever within the society.
Damn it, you know your place and you stay in it.
That's correct, because that keeps order.
Yes.
Eventually
one man would have ruled and brought order.
We're off to a good start eviscerating
Caesar. Think of its accomplishment. Sorry, I'm doing Condonian sing.
Well, I brought it up.
He brought it up.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing an excellent job eviscerating Hobbes off of just one quote already. So I'm thrilled.
Well, because
I think I need to turn it over to Francis.
He's in the 1600s, and so much of the things that Voltaire spoke about and that Jefferson took from that, it's taking Hobbes' ideas and realizing, but that's not quite us.
But you know what? I think they do the exact same thing. This was my problem with Voltaire. He says all these grandiose things that sound really great, but he means only for certain people. You know,
that's right. Yeah,
Yes, they had a hard, even up through Voltaire, they had a hard time shaking off their notions of class.
Yeah.
Class was
not to go all Marxist on us here, because I'm not a Marxist, but class does figure into their perspectives.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Jefferson too.
Liberty is only for those who deserve it.
Yeah.
Liberty is
those
only for
who are born
those
into it. Those who are capable of understanding it.
Right. So even Voltaire, as high sounding and as nice as all of his stuff is, he's still an asshole.
Well, yeah.
I mean, because it's only for certain people.
Yeah,
that's correct.
And
that's right.
To me, you don't really believe what you're saying
unless you're applying it to everybody.
So that's why I say he's an asshole, because he doesn't really believe what he says.
But why does it get? Why should it be
he does,
applied
but
to
only
everyone?
for certain people.
Because of the inherent dignity of the human person. There you go.
Very good. I'm delightful for that. See,
if I've taught him nothing, I have taught him this.
That's not something Voltaire would be able to articulate. He would, but he would not apply that universally.
These human people, not these human
That's
people.
exactly right. There were still exceptions.
Why all of humanity deserves liberty.
That's correct. Because ultimately...
Not license, but liberty.
Anything else is ultimately racist.
Anything...
Because if it's only
racist, sexist, however you want to put it.
Classist,
it's all the same. Exactly.
Yes.
So, which leads me to my quotation.
Excellent.
All right, which is very similar to what... We're going to kind of continue on the same mode here, but this is another Hobbes quote that talks a little bit to what you're talking about, but it goes back to the essential quality of humanity, which government
I'm sharpening my razor to continue the...
I was wondering, you're stropping the blade.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, it says, government is necessary, not because man is naturally bad, but because man is by nature, here's the money shot, folks, more individualistic than social. Let me read it again. Government is necessary, not because man is naturally bad, but because man is by nature more individualistic than social.
I like this. I agree. I think 100% with that.
That's why I wanted to make sure we bring out something that is not so easily eviscerated, because it's the nature. Because you're exactly right. We are individuals first, even though we are social creatures. Society comes...
I think we are probably more social than he thinks.
Yeah, that's right.
We
are social creatures. There's no doubt about that. It's just a question of a hierarchy here.
Yeah, and there's always a hierarchy. There is no such thing
Which
as
one
a total
trumps
equality. Yeah, but I think that, and again, not to dominate, because I know I've been really doing that.
You're doing great, man.
I think that the reason you have government is supposed to be to guarantee the liberty of the people.
Yes. Of all the people.
And we put it. We do ordain and establish this Constitution. We the people.
Yeah.
And the government should come from the people in order to safeguard.
Right. What's sovereign?
Yes.
Who is sovereign?
Yes.
Is
it
that
which is sovereign? Yeah.
Because if we do leave it all to the individuals, it's anarchy.
Well, that's what he's talking about.
And it's all
here.
relativism.
That's right. We will
that.
eventually kill each other if it were not for government, because we're all individuals first.
Yes, we're all individuals.
I'm not.
But that's what he's talking about here. Is that the government exists to keep people safe, because otherwise we'd kill each other.
Right. Government.
That's what he's saying. I'm not saying that that's necessarily true.
I don't know about kill each other, but the government.
The strong would dominate the weak.
Yeah. Well, the government exists to, in my mind, obviously does not exist everywhere because of this or expressed this way, is to we establish government and we let government do the things it does, and then of course it takes more than we let it, but that's another discussion. To do the things that individually we can't do, first of all. Like, I'm not going to go out and pave just that portion of the road in front of my house. Because if the guy on my right and the guy on my left doesn't do it, what's the point in me doing it?
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
And common defense is another one.
Common defense. Making sure the mail runs across the entire country and the world. Things like that. Guaranteeing that that there are laws governing contracts.
Yes, that's a hugely important one.
That's hugely important.
Well, the safety of the citizenry
yes.
as well. You know,
hopefully, theoretically, the local constabulary should take care of that. But yes,
but that is an arm of in its hierarchy of local things.
So yes, the government exists though to you could say in certain ways you can misinterpret it, but the government exists to protect the people from themselves at times as well.
Well, that's what he's saying.
Yes.
For sure.
And I think that's what he's saying. But the government should do that always in the service of all of the people, or at least as many as it can, because you can't really serve everybody in every single case.
Well, there are conflicts, of course.
Right.
But is he not saying that too, though?
Yes. I think as a mechanism to, maybe this is a good way to put it. Government provides the mechanism to resolve disputes between individuals.
Or groups.
Yeah, or groups,
yeah,
yes.
I think that's right.
And we express that through, all right, we got laws saying that green is go, yellow is proceed with caution, red is stop.
Yeah.
At every intersection. Or the red octagonal stop sign.
Yeah.
Means you stop. And everybody's first one there goes, and then it goes around to the right. That is the only freaking thing you need to know about four-way stop signs, people. Learn it. Sorry, that's one of my pet peeves.
Sounds like a Hoopa-Tube episode.
Yeah, really, that could be. Traffic pet peeves.
We better not go there.
Yeah, because that guy driving...
Martin will go down the rabbit hole and not come back.
Yeah, because that guy driving in the...
skip a bit, brother.
50 miles an hour in the left lane.
Don't say, he said it. Oh, no.
Well, we all know where Martin would go with that one.
Or the one that's driving 20 miles an hour too slow on the on-ramp.
Yeah. Or comes to a stop at the end of it.
That's right. Yes. Hazards of navigation.
Yes, I about sent some dude in a pickup truck into the middle of next week yesterday on 65 because he was just poking from the Snyder onto 65. Well, and it's like, dude, you've got to go. The rest of us have to get on.
Well, and that's an example where that man should have, if a police officer had been there, could have ticketed him because he was a danger to traffic. It was reckless driving.
He was.
Or reckless stopping, however you want to put it.
I mean, you think, he's going slow, so he's not... No, actually,
that's a danger.
He's a danger to the rest of the traffic.
That's right.
He really is. If that pickup doesn't go any faster than that, you need to stay on surface streets. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You don't need to be on the
that's a great
expressway.
example of the need for government to help us all have an agreed-upon standard of behavior that we all agree to work on.
That makes things function.
Yes. As opposed to arbitrariness. That's the thing that's the thing that the other quote that Martin had leads to, because it's the arbitrariness of one person.
Yep.
Whereas if we can get more people to agree, it's less arbitrary.
In Hobbes' mind, if the despot is enlightened, there is no arbitrariness. He's working always for virtue.
Yes, but the despot is only enlightened in his own mind, because I guarantee most of the other people do not think he's enlightened.
He's a philosopher. What's that got to do with anything practical?
I get that, but that's why I think I get sad with philosophy, because they're all full of crap.
That's right. It's but it certainly makes for some interesting ideas on that, because he's right. Like you say, you agree with him on this. Most of the time, most of Hobbes' stuff we would probably agree with. What about the nature of man? Hang on, let me qualify. As with regards to the nature of man, nature of humanity.
I don't even know that I would say that necessarily.
Because
what we don't agree is how do you mitigate that?
Yeah,
because he believes that man left to his own devices is a dangerous thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly there are tendencies in our behavior that can be hurtful of others. But I think humans are more social than he gives us credit for. And I think to a degree we can self-govern. But certainly it's much easier to self-govern in smaller groups.
It is.
As you make the civitas larger, then yes, okay, you need to then be a little more on top of everything.
Well, one thing he's neglecting, and this is because of his time, is that humanity has the capability of education. See, there is no such thing here As far as he's concerned, the reason there's no upper mobility is because there's no means for that, because the ignorant have to stay ignorant, because we have no mechanism for doing otherwise. Why should we?
Well, also,
once we learned that not only can we, but we should, when we have education now, we have the ability to be upwardly mobile. And therefore...
That's a difference in technology, though. 350 years ago, when Hobbes was writing, in the 1660s, 70s, we're not even anywhere near the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
there's everything is man and horse powered.
Correct.
So if you are a farmer, you can't send your kids to school, even if the village has a school.
Yeah,
you can't send your kids there because in the wintertime it's too cold. Yeah. You're not going to send them out in the snow and the freezing, because you probably don't have decent clothing for them to wear.
They're going to die. Yeah.
They're going to die in the snow. In the spring and the summertime, you're planting, you're tending, and you're harvesting.
That's right, and that's a necessary function at its own level for society to function.
Yes.
So in other words,
the best you can do is go to school, go to church on Sunday. At this time, 60. Yeah, this would have been mass because the Catholic Church would have been back briefly. But I mean, you would have gone to church. You would have gotten some Sunday school in that sense, and that would have been about it.
That's right. That's the government's way of, because at the time they were together, of giving good to its individual citizens. Yes. That's as close as you got as saving their souls. And beyond that, they had their jobs to do.
Well, yes, and their job was to feed the rich.
That's right. Well, I mean, and each other. I mean, feed everybody.
A few of them died. As long as it didn't interrupt the flow of goods and services to the rich,
and that's part in your
to the despot.
There's some sense in what, but see, the problem being, as it's never been changed, mind you, is the ultra rich continue to stay ultra rich, and the poor never get better. That was not even a question or an issue for Hobbes. Whereas today, it's one of the benchmarks of a civilized society.
That mobility.
And that's kind of what I'm pointing out here, is that's a sea change, folks. Is that why all of a sudden technology had a lot to do with it, because we could. But ultimately, it's a philosophical change of thinking, no, the dignity and sanctity of human beings has to go to everybody. Something Hobbes had no interest in. He saw them as something, as a group that must be controlled for their own good, too. Not just
which is very
authoritarian.
Well, that's not even the word I was looking for.
Is that antithetical to the American mindset?
It is. It's very much a condescending, I know best, paternalistic.
Yes, that's a good word. Paternalistic.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where a lot of this stuff comes from in philosophical form.
Yeah. Good stopping point.
Yes, that was. I think we shall have a bourbon break, gentlemen.
Yes. It is time for a bourbon break. So. Talk amongst yourselves about the bourbon for a moment while I figure out what my quote is going to be.
Let him choose his rhymes, as Cyrano de Bergerac would say.
Yes.
While we continue.
So, yes, Francis and I poured from his stock here at Studio F. Another Old Forester brand.
Yes, this is one of their segmentation
brands. Not the 1920 Prohibition, but the 1897 Bottled in Bond 100 proof.
Yes.
Which, pardon me, I'm not finding quite as complex, but still good. Still a very mellow flavor.
Yeah, it's got a little sting to it. Now, we're drinking it with ice because it's 100 proof.
It's opening up a lot of flavor here for me.
It is. It's tongue based for me. It's not sinus. It's not esophagus. Right, it's very tongue. It's very front of the mouth. It is very different than that. Than the 120
not
proof.
As, not as
the 1920.
Yeah, the 1920 115. Not as sweet. Not as chocolatey. Not as fruity.
See, Martin is our master taster. He's the one that knows.
Master what?
Master. You heard me. Taster. Yes, that's right. He's the one that seems to be able to pull the uniqueness out of it.
Yes, even though I don't drink soft drinks anymore, I still have sweet drinks, so that probably still taints my palate some. But I am seeing a better palate.
You're getting a broader.
Yes.
You're able to distinguish more things.
Yes, far more than I used to be able to.
Yeah.
But not nearly to your level.
Yeah. Well, of course, I could also be just talking out of my ass.
You could, and we would not know the difference.
As long as it makes for a good podcast, gentlemen, who cares?
As long as we are accurate in our statement of fact.
Of course, that's right.
Yeah. No, I mean, really, I did get a little bit of that from the 1921. This one, it's not as complex. I'm not getting quite as many things. Having a harder time placing it. But still very mellow, smooth flavor. Again, yeah, right on the tongue. And not...
Would you say it's a little stripped down? Not quite.
Yeah, I mean...
It's bottled and bond, remember? So
yeah.
It's going to be a little bit more of a strict process.
Well, but the strict process doesn't necessarily imply that they don't get to monkey with the recipe.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. Is where does that fall in that?
Most likely, it's a very similar, what they call mash bill. What they're mixing. Probably not exactly the same, but probably somewhat similar. Aged a little differently, blended a little differently.
It could just be that where it was in the rick house, that particular summer made a difference compared to the other one. Because that is a very important thing in the aging of bourbon. That is why all bourbon comes from Kentucky, because we are so unique.
Yes, we know how to do this
for how this works. But
yes, our limestone for the water and our
seasons
and our seasons are we get all 4 seasons.
Yeah. Very distinctly. Yes,
that's correct.
Yes. So yes, I'm still finishing off the 1920 Prohibition. Because I could not get through the entire glass in the last episode, and I'm just taking my last swallow. Well. So this is because this is at the end. This is far more diluted than the original 115. So,
I was going to say, I don't think even at 100 proof or 115 proof, none of us had the kajumpak, as the Klingons would say, the stones. To go with it neat.
Yeah, it's still so. This one, as we said in the last time, very much in the mouth and on the tongue. Where do you? Get
this one's the same.
Same. Okay.
Very much right there in the front of the mouth.
Probably says that it is like a same core formulation that they modify for the various, because it's still the same brand, so they're probably still going to want to have some similarity, I would guess.
Yeah,
correct. But, and like I said, they've got 4 or 5 of these year versions. Yeah, which we've just got the 2 here now.
I would say
we'll have the others. Yes,
I would say that the ice and the dilution especially brings this out.
Yeah,
it does,
and it smooths it greatly.
Oh, that's very true. It is.
So as much as so the flavor is hanging around a lot more with this iced diluted sip than it was at the very beginning. So again, to me, that's another vote in favor of a little bit of splash of water and chilling to
I really do find that the ice just blooms these flavors more than neat. Neat can just be overwhelming.
Yes,
with the alcohol, where you just don't get that chance to see that depth.
And I think the best example of that was that Jim Beam Black.
Yeah,
it was just, it's so medicinal tasting. It's like taking a slug of NyQuil. Yeah, not quite that bad.
Which is usually Martin's major complaint.
But you add that water and ice, through the melting ice, it totally it doesn't even taste like the same.
Well, and that, which leads us to the point, the one that you disliked the most, I think, was Buffalo Trace.
Yeah,
did you drink that neat?
Probably not.
I was going to say, I'm wondering if maybe
if it's front loaded with that really heavy medicinal flavor, that could be hard to overcome.
Right, but I mean, the Jim Beam Black did.
I'm willing to try it. What's that?
I said it did with the Jim Beam Black. Yeah,
I'm willing to try it again.
Sure, yeah. And now that we know a little bit more about what we're doing,
I mean, I won't buy any Buffalo Trace, but if it's in your stockpiles,
so you're willing to let us take the financial risk on that?
Yeah. I'm sure it's quality. Of course, it's just it's also just like so much things. It's not a question of appetite; it's a question of taste.
Yeah,
yes,
and certainly there are people for whom they like the taste.
That's right.
Buffalo Trace is a popular bourbon. Bullet is a popular bourbon. We've had Bullet on the show here.
Some in my shelf right now.
To me, it's also one that leans a little in that medicine direction, a little rough, not as smooth and blended and complex.
I think Bullet is designed that way because it calls itself Frontier Whiskey. It's meant to be a little bit more harsh. Yeah.
But again,
it's charm.
When you start talking about that same price point, I mean, hell, Evan Williams is $15, and it's smooth and not complex, but flavorful.
Yeah.
Wild Turkey at $19 or $20. That wonderful pear, vanilla. I mean, it was like, wow, I really get this, and it's what I'm supposed to be getting.
Yeah, right.
Flavor. I just don't. So I don't get the attraction of, at the same price point, going with these harsher flavors.
Right.
So
or
they
even
really
at higher price points that
Yeah.
don't match the smoothness and the.
That's right. There are some that, for some folks, that's a thing. They like that.
They like
yeah,
it.
It's just not apparently not us.
The one Jim Beam, the Devil's Cut.
Yeah.
You know, I like that as a good change of pace. It's not nearly as smooth as the normal ones that I drink, but I think that's a good change of pace.
Yeah, which as it's the Devil's Cut by its marketing, it's meant to have that harsher edge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's hey, it's just a thing.
Right.
It's okay.
Right. So
Excellent bourbon break, gentlemen.
Oh, it was
right.
excellent. Yes.
Slide yourself over here, Robert, and see what we got.
No, I'll save that for the next episode. I think because I don't want to start anything. Because I want to get to my quote. So
Yes.
Yeah.
my
Plunk it down on us.
is from Man and Citizen.
Okay.
Okay.
So we I think we stayed with Leviathan for both of yours.
It's just
right?
masterwork.
Yeah.
It's where most of it
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so this one I think is going to sum up my problems with both quotes. Both my problems and my, I like that, but it's still got its flaws, and
Yes.
you're just totally full of crap. So, it is one thing to desire, another to be in capacity fit for what we desire.
Ooh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Again, a commentary on the nature of humanity,
Yes?
but it's also saying that
it makes us sound like we're undeserving of what we have.
Well-
we're undeserving of our liberty.
And some people can, I think you could make an argument in some ways, because I think a lot of people, I think they abuse their liberty.
Yeah, I mean, even if you fritter it away, though,
It's yours to fritter.
it's yours to
Assuming you are not impinging upon another's liberty.
fritter. Yes, yes.
At least not in a way that is not appropriate. So if my liberty is to, get a nail gun and a bucket of nails and keep you off my lawn for 2 hours.
Tim Wilson,
Yeah.
yep.
That's it. And if
Yes.
you come over and take me out, that's not infringing upon my liberty, because that was not my liberty to begin with. But to me, what this quote is saying is, to me, it spoke more to people like Hobbes himself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because to me, it's almost a commentary on again, this is a quote pulled out of a larger piece, so I don't exactly know the context here. But what it says to me is a couple of things. One is, we may want something, but can we achieve it? Can we get it? It's not so much do we deserve it.
Yeah.
Because the being fit for something, to me, says, all right, well, if I want to be a professional basketball player, is being nearly 56 and 60 pounds overweight okay in pursuit of that goal? Probably not. I'm not fit for that. And that's a fit in a particular
how
way.
you define that word fit.
Yes,
Yeah,
Because
you're
thinking
have the
fit.
talent for what you desire is one thing.
right. Well,
Well,
there's that talent, because presumably if you have the desire, you probably have at least some degree of talent. Not always, because
Commitment.
But do
Yes.
you have the commitment? Have you honed your craft
Yes. Yes.
to enable you to achieve that? But the
Have
other
you done
part
the work?
Yeah, have you done the work?
Talent plus commitment equals the achievement
Yes.
of the desire.
Exactly. Now, whether you are hugely successful at it, I mean, not the achievement of the desire, but you are certainly, living out that desire as best as you can.
Yeah, whether or not it sells is immaterial.
Well, I think even
But it's, even a film director of a flop has talent and had commitment and produced
Well, then what's
the artwork.
Oh, very good point. That means that equation is incomplete. There's something else that
Right.
equals success.
Yes, I mean,
yeah.
Assuming achievement is defined as success.
Well,
right, because
It's not just
I
putting the
feel like
product
they can be separate. You can achieve what you desire. It doesn't mean that other people see value in your desire.
Well,
right,
but
exactly.
ultimately, but isn't that what we're looking for?
right, because we could spend the next 30 years writing 50 books apiece and never sell a single one.
That's right, exactly.
But if we have produced what we think is the best we can, we have achieved that desire. Now, will we be happy that
Nobody
nobody likes them? Well, no, because everybody wants.
Yeah, which is kind of back to my point. I think ultimately that the achievement is by itself is just a dawdle. It's irrelevant.
Yes,
it's success is what you want. Yes. So therefore, there's a missing component to your equation.
I'm wary of using success in this particular quote
because it's relative to the public and they are fickle.
Well, because success. Well, there's that, but success is very much an individual definition.
Yeah,
it really is. Because when you look at somebody's... So, for instance, one of the non-fiction books I'm working on is how you set goals and what success truly means.
Right, okay.
Right? And one of the things over the years that I've truly come to believe, because most of the motivational self-help kind of stuff is very materialistic-oriented.
Yeah.
And I don't like that approach. Not that there's anything wrong with wanting to have money, as long as you use it well and wisely.
Yeah.
But some would say, well, that's none of your business how I use it. It's like, well...
The law says otherwise.
Well, to a degree.
To a degree. I mean, that's true.
If Martin wants to achieve his wealth and spend it all on, blowing hookers, that's up to him and his wife to argue out.
I suspect he will lose.
I suspect he will, too.
Yes.
Right. But that's not for me to say whether or not, that's for him to do. Other than the fact that, the blowing hookers is illegal, which we've all agreed upon.
Well, if you move to certain places, it is not. So therefore, if you got the money...
That's beside the point, though. But the success is individualistic in that if I define success, or if you want to call it my happiness, my joy,
right. Yes,
however you want to put that.
Finding your bliss.
Finding your bliss, yes. Being your best self, living your best life.
A purpose-driven life.
If you want to go there.
This, like Steve Rogers, we can do this all day.
Well, where I come with that is a values-driven life.
Very good. Very good.
So,
agreed.
To me, true success is living out your values.
Okay.
And having a purpose is one of those values.
Well, yes, if you live out your values, you should be finding your purpose in that. It should become
very
apparent.
Much.
Yeah. And that's a whole other thing to go to. So
purpose is kept inherent within those values.
Yeah. Well, the purpose has to serve the values. The values have to serve the purpose. But the values come first. The values have to come first.
Yeah. Otherwise, the purpose is...
And my values are going to be different than yours and the guy down the street. So therefore, my definition of success is going to be different. Great juxtaposition of this is Tony Robbins' audio I was listening to once years ago, and he was asking people in the audience, "Tell me what your success level of how do you define success?" One guy stands up and says, "Well, it's to have a net worth of $4 million, to weigh this much, to have X% of body fat," and pretty long list, but those are the three that I remember. So Tony Robbins says, "Well, are you a success?" I said, "No." I'm like, "Well, why not?" "Well, I'm only worth $2 million. My body fat is 2% higher than what it should be, what I think it should be." Yeah. And so all of these things that he misses the mark by, and he thinks he's a failure. Whereas everybody else in the room would think he's an utter success.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The next guy he asks is like, "Well, what's your definition of success? How do you define it?" "Every day above ground is a great day."
Yeah. Yeah. Any day I'm not looking at the roots of the grass and the trees is all right.
Exactly. So those are the two extremes.
Yeah.
But you know what? The second guy was happier than the first guy. Even though by any societal measurable means, the first guy was the total success.
Yeah.
Now, this guy, for all we know, was worth $20 million. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that wasn't his definition of success.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I hesitate
he's happier in the end.
Yes.
The other guy, the first guy, is miserable because he's missing some arbitrary target.
Because he's misdefined the goals.
Yeah. It's because the thing that he desires, he is not fit capacity to have it.
As Hobbes would say.
That's yes.
Right. He is not fit capacity to have it.
Exactly. Because he has a flawed desire.
Yeah.
Is the way I would put it. Now, that's his desire, so if that's the way he wants to live his life.
But ultimately, that's why he's not achieving it. And he can, and Hobbes would say, never achieve it because he's not fit for it.
Right.
Because
now, maybe he could achieve it, but at what cost?
That's right.
What's he going to do to his family?
He would just move the goalposts too.
And very likely he would move the goalposts.
If he got to 4 million, then he'd say, well, I'm not happy, so it must be 6 million.
Exactly.
Without realizing that's not the reason you're not happy.
That's
exactly.
It's because you bring yourself in many respects.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
yes,
as it appears.
George McClellan of the self-help circuit.
Exactly. So, but the reason that I chose this in relation to what we were talking about earlier is Hobbes. He's illustrating this through those two quotes that you guys came up with, because he's recommending the enlightened despot against all factions and other forms of government,
other than separating powers. Yeah,
right. But at the same time, he's recognizing that we need government to... what was your quote? We actually didn't have you guys redo your quotes, which is bad, because I almost always do that.
Because to essentially control things, government is necessary not because man is naturally bad, but because man is by nature more individualistic than social.
So he's saying that, and in some ways his quotes do support each other, but they're also in opposition. Because, yes, we're individualistic, and so, yes, a guiding hand to help us be more social in our relationship to others. Yes, in a way that supports that inherent dignity of the human person, as Martin so justly and rightly pointed out. So government is necessary, but that implies that the factions are working together. So on the one hand, he's acknowledging that, we got to have that. On the other hand, he's saying, well, no factions except my own faction, which to me, they're contradicting. In some ways, they're self-supporting. Yeah. But in a lot of ways, they are contradicting.
There's the beauty of all that.
Well, and this is the
paradox.
Well, and this is the epitome of what makes a great philosopher.
Yeah,
he can say the same thing and mean multiple different things. And as a matter of fact,
that's why we still read him. Yeah,
it's what Teddy Roosevelt said about the 14 points from Wilson in the last one. It can mean anything and nothing. And that's the mark of a good philosopher.
That's right. Yeah.
So to be a philosopher, I guess, means you desire one thing but not be able to achieve it.
And that's why Mel Brooks is such a genius. You're a stand-up philosopher. Oh, you're a bullshit artist.
Yes.
Did you bullshit last week? Did you try to bullshit last week?
Right.
Very good, sir. We haven't brought Mel Brooks in a while. Yeah, he is truly one of the great geniuses.
He is a super, I mean...
And a nice guy, too.
Yeah, Wile E. Coyote super genius.
Yes. So... I think this is a great quote to kind of point out the flaws in both of his statements, but also in greater context, which is where we went with it initially, was talking about how we as human beings also, because again, this is taken out of a larger quote, and I don't know what that quote is, but for me, this also tells me, more than likely, we are reaching for something that we are not yet fit for. Maybe we never will be. But it is the struggle to achieve that desire that we are perhaps not ready for that is what makes life worth living. Because if you only reach for what you are fit to have...
You'll never be fit for anything.
Well, that's damn boring.
Yeah, that's right.
Where's the growth in that?
That's right. Yeah, he's...
Where's the dignity in that?
Well, but of course, his ideal view of society is no growth.
That's true. Which again is why I say that this is, it's the ironic thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much a know your place and stick to it.
Well, for all in his defense, for all the right reasons from his perspective, because he's just he wants order in society and sees that as the ultimate good.
But all the despots think that.
Yeah,
it's like nobody gets up in the morning thinking I'm going to be evil today. They get up thinking I'm going to save everybody today.
Dr. Evil does, but he's the exception.
He's the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, I mean, every despot thought they were saving the world.
Exactly.
They were I'm doing this for your own good.
For your own good. That's correct.
Yes, I'm murdering 13 million people for the rest of our good.
Yeah.
That's
Well, for the communists, though, if you got murdered in service to the state at the Gulag, that was for your own good.
Yes.
It wasn't just for the survivors' good. It was for your own good.
You were undesirable
that was
for the state.
That was your redemption.
That's right.
Yes.
Was your death in service of the state.
You were unfit for this society we're building, so that if you cannot conform, you must be expunged.
Well, it's not even so much that, because they were sent off to the Gulag to do things like harvest timber for the cities to burn as fuels, things like that.
Yeah.
So if they died doing that, then they died serving the state.
Or even if you got the 9mm heart attack,
9mm,
that was your redemption in service of the state.
Yes. Well, you remove the dissonance from the state by your death.
Which that's very Hobbesian, though.
It's
got to go. The state is all. It is the function. It's just so happens it's been clothed in the communist world in the good of the people, which
he does too.
That's what Hobbes was saying.
Well, you can make the argument that Hobbes philosophically supports communism.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
modern communism, not Marx and Engels communism.
Bolshevism, perhaps.
But it is to me
Stalinism for certain.
Yeah, it's a straight line.
Yeah.
Hobbes to Marx to Lenin to Stalin.
Yes. Yes.
It is.
The only difference is that Hobbes is more honest about the despot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because all of the others say, well, this is the service of the people. The people are the state is the people.
Yeah.
And we just happen to be the people who are guiding the rest of them because we're more enlightened.
Well,
to bring a little bit of Voltaire
There's that word, that enlightened piece. That for Hobbes, that was what made it workable and doable and desirable.
Which, again, it goes back to my problem. And I understand what you're saying.
It's just full of crap.
Is that
it's not possible.
You say you're the one who's enlightened, but who are you to say you're more enlightened than I am?
That's correct, especially if the reason you're there is because some hereditary factor or some moistened bit lobbed a scimitar at you.
Exactly, that's no basis to form a government.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Strange
women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government.
That's right. Exactly.
Right. But it's just as. But you know what? It's
Bloody
just as
peasant. Oh, what a giveaway!
Yeah, what a giveaway! Yes.
Come see the abilities
being a good artillery
system.
Commander is not either.
That's
so
right. help! I'm being repressed. Oh, what a giveaway!
But that's the inherent flaw.
That's right.
In all of it, and that's again to me, in a way, he's also living out his own version of this in that he's laying out this desire for this enlightened despot, but no one is fit for that.
Well, hey, I mean, I can still go back to Bella Oxmix in Star Trek. Yeah, this planet's got to be unified, but I got to be the unity.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all politics is that way.
That's right.
Whoever's running for president of the United States, that's what they're saying. They're just not as bald-faced about it.
The most cooperative man in this world is a dead man. So if you don't behave, you're going to be cooperating.
Well, that's essentially the gulag.
That's the gulag. Yeah. That's exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
One last comment on this episode before we wrap up is that I'm really excited that we took Thomas Hobbes and not only brought in Mel Brooks and Monty Python, but you got to say hookers and blow. So that's why I love this episode. Yeah, who else would talk about Thomas Hobbes and mention hookers and blow?
That's why we are the place you need to come for your true understanding of why the hell should you care about all this stuff. That's why we're doing the public service to enlighten our listeners to things that otherwise you'd say, oh, piss off.
Well,
it's much better than that. We can make it worth your while.
This is why we are armchair philosophers as opposed to professionals, because we don't take this stuff as seriously as professionals, and I think that's the thing.
Yeah, there's an element of we know we're full of it.
Well, we know we're full of it. We can also
understand they are too.
Yeah, well, I think maybe some of them do, but we have the ability to poke holes and poke fun at their stuff, recognizing that we don't have all the answers either.
Yeah,
that's right. Because we know when they're full of shit, as you all have said on several occasions so far.
Yeah, this is probably the most used. This one in the last episode, probably the most number of times the word shit has appeared.
And I think
we have our standards. We will say shit as often as we want to. We just won't drop the F-bomb, generally speaking.
Yes.
Well, I did in purpose once.
Yes,
and you did accidentally.
I did accidentally.
We edited yours out. We left Robert's in.
Because I could come up with no other way to put it.
I think as we hit these philosophers down the road, full of shit is going to be, quite
it's going to be very, it's going to be very. Oh, wait!
We're going to set records each episode.
Wait till we get to Kant, boys. Oh, yeah, that's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Are we doing John Stuart Mill as one of our guys?
Are you kidding? That's the one I've been waiting for.
Okay.
Yes,
just making sure because I couldn't remember the actual list.
He's going to become a Wilsonian McClellan pinata.
So we're going to do him last, or
no? Because we're going chronological, but second to last.
Second to last.
Yeah, and we're actually doing John Dewey after him.
Yes.
And a lot of that is because, and I'll give you a preview only because. My philosophy professor at Meinrad was very convinced that so much of what's the matter with the world today and our mechanistic view of everything is John Dewey. And that's where I think that it's worth for us to spend a little time.
We should consider, just because we did mention it earlier, we should consider doing an Ayn Rand episode because...
Why not?
As the final one, just because she is at the heart of a lot of philosophical debate today in this country.
Extend it out one more, Martin.
I don't know how well we'll do with pulling quotes from her, other than to eviscerate her. Although she got some that are good.
That's okay.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's a basis to it that I like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of every one of these philosophers. They all have something good to say.
Right.
Whether or not they're right or not, well,
the problem is I like to say, it's that logical conclusion.
That's right. Let's roll with it and see where it goes.
Yeah. So, anyways, what's next, Francis?
We're going to continue. This is really just a pause button, folks, because next week we're going to come back and talk more about Hobbes himself as the man. We're going to go a little bit deeper into... We've pretty done a good job talking about why he believes what he believes. We'll get into a little bit more of that, a little bit deeper, to kind of understand that he believes very seriously in what he's talking about. And let's go into the reasons why and what is logical, what is not.
Well, I think we need to cover, what's the end game there. What flows from this? Why? Because again, if it's why does he matter, what does he influence after the fact?
That's right. All that's going to be covered next episode. So be here.
Hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes published every Friday at noon Eastern.
Spread the word. We're on all the major podcast platforms. And leave us a comment or review because that helps others find us.
We're on Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com.
I'm Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. Join us next week. Same snake time, same otter channel.